Hello everybody, I'm Roy McCoy and welcome to the latest episode of What Happened To, the programme that we take a game or series from history and ask those all-important questions. What was it? What happened to it? And could we see another one? Now, tonight's offering is a little bit different to normal, and that's because Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning is getting a remastered version in just under a month. So I can tell you that right at the start, my question of will we be seeing it again has already been answered. So, the reason that I'm choosing to talk about this game and what happened to it is because the story of this game is so interesting. Now, let me take you on a trip through time and space back to 2012, when this action RPG was released on PC, PS3 and Xbox 360, and it was developed by 38 Studios. This game was in fact the only game ever to be developed by 38 Studios before they went bankrupt. Now I know we often bemoan games that never happened, like Silent Hills, with the idea of Hideo Kojima working with Guillermo del Toro, but this game really did have the dream team. First up, there was Ken Rolston, who was the game's executive designer and had worked previously on the Elder Scrolls games. Then there was best-selling author R.A. Salvatore, who created the game universe and lore, and backing it up was the artist Todd McFarlane. Now, Todd McFarlane is the guy that brought you Spawn, and he was also the first artist to draw Venom in the Spider-Man universe. This team, on paper, is epic. And I've got to say, looking back, if you've never played Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning, it was a brilliant game. I absolutely loved it. Let me know in the comments below if you two are a fan of this and you are indeed looking forward to the remaster, ReReckoning, because I am definitely going to be playing that one. When the game released, it had rather favourable reviews. Now, the thing I loved about it most, I loved the lore and I loved the world building, I loved the character design, and a lot of things. Look, Ken Rolston was on board, so of course it's going to remind me of the Elder Scrolls game. But the thing that I loved about it most is that it managed to get the action element of the action RPG perfectly right for me. In fact, if I look back now, this is probably one of my favourite PS3 games. And when I was recently thinking about it, this was before I realised that ReReckoning was coming. I realised just how much I missed this and found myself wondering why we never had a second. Why Kingdoms of Amalur 2 never arrived. So, before I get on to what happened to this game and why we didn't see that sequel, I suppose I should answer the question, is this worth playing? Well, considering we're getting the ReReckoning, the remastered version, right around the corner, I'm not going to recommend that you go back and find the PS3 or Xbox 360 version. But I do strongly recommend giving this game a look if you're into your action RPGs, your hack and slash games, especially with strong lore and great world building. For me, the story was absolutely pitch perfect. The action element was phenomenal. The customization was great, typically an RPG, and the world in which you played was both gorgeous and really interesting. I know that from the time, one of the reviews came out from GameZone and said basically that if Fable and Skyrim had a child, that Reckoning might well be that baby. So that might just give you an idea of what this game really is. When I look back to those 8 years ago and think of the DLC and the game itself, this game for me was a solid 9 out of 10 and a game that I have missed and didn't realise how much I was missing until I made this video and saw that ReReckoning was coming out. The Metacritic score at the moment of making this video, the Metascore is 81 based on 34 reviews and the user score is 7.7 based on 389 ratings. So they're not bad scores, but I did expect that to be a little bit higher. So now let's talk about what happened to the game, why we didn't get Kingdoms of Amalur 2. And actually, to be honest, this is quite a sad story for me. You see, this game was a bit of a passion project. It was somebody who loved games and really wanted to make a game. 38 Studios was founded by baseball star Curt Schilling. If anything can tell you that this game was originally going to be a passion project, it's looking at that dream team of Todd McFarlane, Ken Rolston, and R.A. Salvatore. But apparently, Curt Schilling originally wanted to make an MMORPG because that was his true passion and games that he loved playing. Now, what's really sad about this, and the fact that they went bankrupt, is that Curt Schilling sunk his fortune into this company. That's how committed he was to making not one, but 2 games. The online multiplayer game that never happened, and of course that brilliant single-player game that became Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Kurt Schilling basically formed 38 Studios, originally called Green Monster Games, with a few of his friends, and also recruited McFarlane and Salvatore. The company was founded in 2006 and opened a big office in Massachusetts. They were working on 2 games at the same time, the MMORPG and also the single-player game, which became the only game to be released by the studio. There were several recruiting drives, and even purchased another developer in the form of Big Huge Games from THQ. Now that's interesting because of the future of what happened to the property rights of Kingdoms of Amalur. Effectively what happened next in 2010 is the nail in the coffin of 38 Studios. Now at this point they had not released a single game, and considering they only released 1, that was a way off. But what they did in 2010 was secure a loan, a $75 million loan from the Rhode Island Economic Development Corporation. This also saw them moving from Massachusetts to Rhode Island. Now, part of the proviso of the loan was that they would have to employ and create new jobs. Now, Kingdoms of Amalur came out in 2012, and as I've already said, it received pretty favourable reviews. And the second game, the MMORPG, which as of yet we have not seen, and there is a big as of yet, was still in development at the time of bankruptcy. You see, even after the favourable reviews and the release of the game, it became pretty quickly apparent that 38 Studios wasn't able to keep up with the repayments. First, they defaulted on 1 repayment, and even after paying a loan repayment, they failed to pay their employees, and sadly, this was pretty much the end of 38 Studios, which is why we have never seen Kingdoms of Amalur 2 or even that MMORPG. It pretty much ruined Kurt Schilling, and Kingdoms of Amalur pretty much became one of those forgotten gems. One of those RPGs that people go, oh, I remember that game was awesome, until now. In 2018, THQ Nordic announced that they had bought the rights of Kingdoms of Amalur and also the project that was that MMORPG, so we could still see something coming from that. And they purchased the rights. Now, it's interesting for me that they bought a developer from THQ, and then THQ Nordic, as they later became, has now bought the rights to this brilliant game. And if you're not sure of the reputation of THQ Nordic, they have bought the property rights to a lot of old games that have somehow disappeared and have started remastering them and making new versions. If you take a look at THQ Nordic's acquisition list, it reads like a tour de force. There are things like Destroy All Humans on there, which recently got a remaster. There's also the Desperados franchise, which recently we saw Desperados 3. In fact, you can see the review that I did of that game. It's brilliant. They own the rights to Carmageddon. They own the rights to, of course, Kingdoms of Amalur. And really importantly, and something that I really want to see very soon, Time Splitters. Oh, please, THQ Nordic. How long are you going to take to make a new Time Splitters game? So why am I mentioning this? Well, we've seen a lot of games come out of THQ Nordic, and it really does feel like they're just buying up any old franchises they can find. But one thing that I'm really enjoying about THQ Nordic is they do a very good job of their remasters and their sequels to old franchises. You only have to look at Desperados 3 and also Destroy All Humans, the remaster. So this almost brings us to the end of this video, because THQ Nordic has already answered my question of when we'll be seeing a new one. Will it be a remake, a remaster, or a sequel? And of course, at the moment, as it stands, it's going to be a remaster. But I can't imagine it's going to be too long before we see Kingdoms of Amalur 2, especially if the reception to the ReReckoning, as they've called it, God, they do like their puns, really takes off. And something that I'm really looking forward to, and this is a bit of a side note, is seeing what that MMORPG could become. If it has the same dream team or has the same pedigree and the same genetics as Kingdoms of Amalur, people like McFarlane, Salvatore and Rolston having put their input into that game, then that MMORPG could turn into something phenomenal. So I really hope that THQ Nordic are working on that. Let me know in the comments below if you would like to see that MMORPG or you would prefer to see a Kingdoms of Amalur 2. But for now, that ends this video of what happened to the Kingdoms of Amalur series. And thank goodness that I can leave this video on a very positive note and say we'll be seeing the remaster for sure, 100% in less than a month. That leaves me very happy. But on that note, this is Roy McCoy, Out!